Hello, and welcome to the world of archaeology. Hi, I'm your host, Zach Nix, and on today's episode of World of Archaeology, we're going to be covering global warming. Global warming is a gradual increase in the overall temperature of the Earth's atmosphere, and it is attributed by the greenhouse effect. Now, global warming is a pretty tricky subject, so we're going to break today's program down into 3 segments. For the first segment, we're going to cover the prehistory of global warming. Then we're going to move into evidence that is against global warming. Then we will move into the evidence that is for it. And to conclude the program, we will make a judgment statement based on all of this evidence and tell you our conclusion. We're also going to educate a fellow friend of ours named Jimmy. Now, for your notes, do you know what an archaeologist is?
No.
Do you think this is an archaeologist?
Yeah.
Wrong. Pseudoscience.
Oh. What does it look like then?
This is an archaeologist.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
Do you know what global warming is?
No.
No? Well, we're going to teach you about it by going into the paleoclimate of our world. Climate has always been changing, and we have been able to look into the Earth's climate millions of years ago with methods such as dendrochronology, drilling ice cores, and excavating deep sea cores.
What does that mean?
First, dendrochronology is the study of tree rings, which allows us to observe the climate changes that have been around the local area. Next, ice cores allow us to get CO2 and other gas measurements to recreate what the Earth's atmosphere was composed of. And last, deep sea cores let us look at what type of sediment was laid down with the law of superposition.
What can you see with that?
Well, if we read the journal of T. Webb III and P.J. Bartley, who wrote Global Changes in the Last 3 Million Years, we can pretty much see that the environment was a very frigid place. Another way to state this is that the environment was very cold. Looking deep in North Hemisphere ice cores located at the North Pole, the oxygen isotope records let us know that 2.5 million years ago, the Earth was mostly covered in ice. This just shows that climate has changed and is going to keep on changing.
That makes sense.
When looking at the geological record of the law of superposition, we can see that the sea levels have risen and they've also fallen. With continental drift and uplift of mountains, we can see that oscillations of monsoons and sea rising. All this is evident of 20 million years ago into the late Jurassic period. The Journal of Paleoclimatic Insights into Future Climate Challenges, written by Richard Bialy, shows us that the climate changes very abruptly and without notice. It also shows that when reading the CO2 levels of the Cretaceous period, we can see that the Earth both heated up and was also cooling down. This is evident by looking at North Atlantic freshwater fluxes.
Oh, I see.
Yes, it is very evident that our planet's climate is just going to continue to change. Yet, there are thousands of case studies that show that the climate has been changing for the last millions of years. But we do need to be prepared for the continual change of the climate, because it's just going to keep changing. But can you believe that there are people out there who don't believe the climate is changing and that global warming does not exist?
No!
And now we will go into the evidence that is against global warming. For the many people who concern themselves with the controversies of global warming, there are plenty of those who believe that it is simply a hoax conjured over the time by the population's paranoia of the climate change.
Paranoia?
Yes, mass media coverage of climate change has caused quite an uproar. However, media sources often very much exaggerate the effects of global warming, and they hold a biased opinion on the subject. The media is very responsible for the misconceptions of climate change.
The media is over-exaggerated.
If you look at Karen McQuillan's journal, Scientists in Revolt Against Global Warming, you'll notice that in actuality, carbon dioxide only accounts for 0.1% of Earth's atmosphere. And of that 0.1%, only 4% of the CO2 derives from human activity. Some scientists often state that most hurricanes and other abnormal storm patterns are the proof to the global warming theories. Yet really, the worst hurricane storms occurred back in 1900 and 1926.
Wow! I didn't know that!
Observing climate change patterns, scientists actually believe, as stated in Charles Smith's A Closer Look at the Climate Change's Skepticism, that the possibility of global warming stopped off in 1998. This is when the Earth's heating cycle reached its peak and then began a cycle of cooling, which is expected to last for years to come now.
That's really interesting.
It is true that the climate is indeed changing, but when is the climate not changing? The climate change is natural, but because of this, many scientists deny the existence of global warming at all. And now, we're going into the evidence that is for and defends global warming. In James Hansen's journal, The Proceedings of the Academy of the United States of America, good information on the dangerous climate change is provided. His studies state that global surface temperature has increased 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade in the last 30 years.
That doesn't sound like very much.
Well, it actually is a lot. Because of that warming, we see the largest effect, especially in the western equatorial Pacific, which leads to strong El Niños, or heavy rains.
Wow!
If global warming is not limited to less than 1 degree Celsius, feedbacks may lead to a different planet, with an ice-free Arctic and complete animal species utterly exterminated. This is extremely important evidence and shows the true dangers of global warming to our environment and our world.
No! That's really sad!
However, global warming can also impact vegetation as well as animal life. In a case study by Ansi Lorla in Global Change and Conservation Ecology, climate warming has led to a decrease in overall toad offspring. Climate warming leads to decreased body condition. This then leads to increased death rate and reduced egg production. In general, the population declines and mortality rates rise.
Holy moly! I didn't know a simple change in the environment could cause that!
For vegetation, food production has declined due to rising night temperatures. Rice grain yield has declined by 10% for each 1 degree Celsius temperature rising in the minimum night temperature. This minimum temperature has increased far more than the maximum temperature. Therefore, we need a greater understanding of the temperature's effect on rice growth.
Why are people being conscientious of this world problem?
Exactly, Jimmy. Public awareness is on the rise. Matthew Seinberg gathered some important information on this matter in Public Opinion Quarterly. Since 1986, 39% of the public knew about global warming. But in 1988, that boosted up to 58% because of the media's coverage of record summer heats. And now, the most recent study shows that in 2006, 90% of the public now know about global warming.
That's good!
Well, yes and no. 90% may know about global warming, but only 11% of the public is informed enough where they can have a full conversation about it.
Oh! What can I do to help?
Well, to help, Jimmy, you can inform others about the changing climate. Then you can remember to recycle your plastics and bottles. Our planet has a very sensitive ecosystem. Even though the Earth's climate changes, our human footprint does not seem to help.
Oh yeah! I'm sure!
Our pollutants and greenhouse gas emissions can push our delicate climate over the edge and into the next possible ice age. Our planet is our only home. We need to realize what a delicate balance it hangs in. There are many things that we can take into effect about climate change, and it is a real occurrence after all. We have to keep in mind that climate can change very quickly, and it is not a long-term process at all.
Wow! Thank you so much for teaching me about global warming. I'll be sure to tell all my friends now about it so that we can protect our planet.
That's right, Jimmy. Well, thank you for watching The World of Archaeology. I'm your host, Zach Nix, and the planet is yours.